It's John Kieran here, Chief Juicer, Brain Juicer. I was just having a quick look at who's listening in, and as far as I can see, we've got some very late night listeners in Japan. So I hope I managed to keep you awake, and also some early morning joiners from the west coast of the US as well as the east coast, and I think a few people from Europe as well. So look, thanks for joining. I'm glad you could make it. We're going to talk about DigiViduals, or digital individuals. It's a bit of a tongue twister if you actually try and say it out loud. Don't worry, no one's listening. It takes a little time to get your tongue around it. But DigiViduals are research robots, yeah. And I'm going to do my best to explain, what they are, how they work, what they're good for, and leave a fair bit of time for questions at the end, because they tend to be it tends to raise quite a few kind of questions and issues. Okay, so look, let's get started. In really basic terms, DigiViduals, okay, these are research robots that we're programming to represent a particular type of person, a particular marketing construct, really, when we say a particular type of person. So it could be a trend, or a segmentation, or a brand persona, anything that we use, if you like, in marketing as a shorthand for large groups of people, if you like, large segments or marketing constructs. And what we're doing is we're programming them to represent that particular group, and then they race out onto the internet and they find content that would fit that particular group. Yeah. So I'm going to introduce Nicole, the lady in the picture there, and I'm going to do my best to try and explain kind of how these work, because they are, I have to say, they are slightly strange, even by brain juicer standards. Yeah, I mean we like to explore new things, but it's they're a challenge. Anyway, so oops, sorry. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. So what you're doing is you're programming a person. Possibly the best way to think about this is imagine that we were trying to create a DigiVidual for you. Okay, so each of you listening, what you would have to do is you'd have to share what are the key words, the key characteristics, the key emotions that are more you than other people, a bit of your lifestyle, where do you live, what's your job, all of the sort of details that would kind of define the essence of you. Yeah, and we would create a DigiVidual, which would be yours. What it then does is it races out on Twitter, first of all, and then looks behind Twitter, and it's picking up content which you could have actually put up. It's so close to you that it's the sort of thing that you could have put up. And so it's blogs, YouTube videos, Flickr pictures, whatever we program it to look for, really. And it brings back thousands of pieces of content from the internet that basically would fit your particular profile. And obviously in the case of this thought experiment, you would be able to look at all of this and pick out, oh, right, okay, yeah, this is very me. And anything that doesn't quite fit, you'd leave out. When we're doing it for marketing constructs like a trend or a segmentation, obviously what we're doing is we're pulling back all of this content that would fit that particular construct, and we're then building, if you like, a sense of this person's life. So this is Nicole, and Nicole we gave her an address. She lived in Hammersmith. She was a jeweler. She worked with jewelry, and basically she represented a particular trend, and the trend was small, precious, and captivating. Yeah, this was a bit of a pioneering study with one of our clients, just to explore an experiment. And what you do is you give her an address, you give her a job, and where she goes to work. In her case, we gave her an eBay account as well, so we can see the sorts of things that that she might be buying or selling or looking at. And what you do is you've got all of this content that's come back, and this is where, if you like, the work of the researcher, the sifting and sorting and pulling out the, the so what starts. And so we try and create a life board. So this is Nicole's life board. And if you look on the top left, dogs, and pretty cute dogs, kept popping up. Yeah, when we sent out Nicole's DigiVidual, there was something about the kind of the cute and the domestic that came out. But remember, she lives in the city, and if you look on the right-hand side, you've got a real sense of the kind of the urban village. So coffee shops, but that urban village sort of feel comes up a huge amount. It's quite sociable. It's romantic even. She liked stories. There was a sort of mythical adventures. She has a bit of a conscience, but there was a nice dark gothic kind of flavor that came through as well. Because although she's quite cutesy, there was a little edge to it. And if you look on the bottom right, there were these sort of weird adult dolls that sort of emerged from some of the content that kept coming back. So there was a quirkiness, a delicate for sure, but a kind of quirky, intricate delicateness that came back. Yeah. Now, there's a video of Nicole, because what we try and do is create a life board and then a video of her life, if you like. This is almost like a week in the life of Nicole, which I can't show you over the webinar. But what I will do is I'll send a link after the webinar so that you can actually see Nicole's video. And everything, all the content, all of the pictures and the videos within the video have come from this search. Okay, so we haven't actually gone and found anything for her. It's all come automatically. And what we've done is edit it together. And you'll see that there's a lovely video in it of the cafe on the way to work. This is the actual route to her work. And there was a lovely video that was posted on coffee art. So have a look at that and see what you think. All right. So far, so okay, interesting. We're gathering a real sense of Nicole in her life. So how do we use it? What do we do with it? The way that the process, if you like, we're really trying to use it to generate potent insights. That's been the main objective so far. But the best way to get there seems to be that you understand Nicole, you understand her life. So this is, you get a real sort of rich sense of her. What we then do, depending on whatever category it is we try and invent a product, in this case candy, that would basically fit Nicole perfectly. It's almost tailor-made for her. It's like a one-on-one, one-to-one marketing, which normally, of course, we can't really do, or it's very hard to do because we're trying to do mass marketing. But of course, what she represents, she is a composite. She represents, maybe a large group of people, a segment of people. But anyway, so you come up with an idea that would fit Nicole, and then what you do is you ask yourself a question, which is, what is it about that particular product that Nicole would love? Yeah, and that's how you then reverse engineer an interesting insight, an insight with much more edge than you would get normally. So let me give you an example. Okay, so at the bottom is the idea, but let's just get a sense of Nicole. So she's fascinated by design, fashion, and craft. She's genuine, sociable, has an infectious zest for life. She's a magpie, alive to the joy that little things can bring. And she's often found to be hanging around in the kind of cooler parts of town. They're an inspiration for her. She loves the buzz of a big city, but she revels in the intimacy of the urban village. She's popular. She has a close circle of friends who admire her warmth, elegance, and generosity. So that's a sense of Nicole. The idea that we came up with was effectively, candy, sweets that would actually have messages on them. So almost like T-shirts would. So, large wrap sweets. So it could be a really cute dog with a kind of curly coat, but with a big bald patch kind of cut out of it, and it would say "Bad Hair Day Repair." Or it would be a kind of, a cute dog with its eyes, looking embarrassed, done something terrible, and it's just, "Sorry, I'm a bad hound." Yeah. Now, don't worry about the ideas. They just have to be something that you feel authentically she would like. The insight is much more, if you like, general, but there are times in my life when I just need to say sorry or cheer up a friend, be coquettish or just plain silly. wouldn't it be great to be able to express my sentiments in candy? Yeah, so that's the insight, and then you can take that execution and take it anywhere you like. We actually took that insight. We generated about 9 insights from this project for real. That particular one is the red cross at the top. I mean, just to show you what you're looking at here, this is a brain juicer way of actually quantitatively measuring insights, and what it's measuring is resonance and edge. Yeah. What would make a really great insight is, wow, you really understand me. This is the consumer response from a great insight. Wow, you really understand me. That's resonance. Almost better than I understand myself. That's edge. And that's the bit that's normally missing. And when someone says something that sort of makes you raise an eyebrow or makes you smile, and you go, do you know what? That's right. That's true. You instantly recognize it as true. But I've never quite heard it like that before. And it makes it interesting. Yeah, that's a great insight. So I'm afraid the one I just shared with you, and that's partly why I can share it with you, it had resonance. You really understand me, but it didn't have much edge. Okay. Luckily, there was one that was had both, and there were also some that didn't work, by the way. So not claiming that all the insights we generated were a great success, but it did enable us to find a couple actually that were really good, and the client's going to use as part of their campaign. Okay. So what do we think it could be used for? And I'm going to give you some about 3 examples, because I think the best way to bring this to life, because it is kind of weird and slightly new, is just to give some examples. But segmentation could be a brand persona enrichment, trend tracking, insight generation certainly, insight tracking, and maybe new product development. Okay, so let's start with this one. So there was an electronics company that came to us, and they said, look, we're not the brand leader, so this obviously isn't Apple, it's not iPod, and we're looking for a better, stronger insight for our product, our mobile music player. So what we did is we created 9 DigiViduals, 3 in America, 3 in Germany, and 3 in Brazil. And as you can see here, they were basically to represent the different ages, so 19, 30, 44. And one of the things we wanted to do was to understand what sort of music they would be listening to. I mean, we wanted to understand their life, the commuting, when they listened to music, what role music played in their life, as well as just understanding, how they lived. And one of the little programs that the geeks that we're working with on this, I should probably share some of that. I mean, we're working with a company called the Filter Factory. That's PHPH, Filter Factory. We met David Basola, who started it. The company didn't even exist when we met him a year ago. And what they're doing, because it might actually help explain, this is the research application, but it might help explain what these things are about. He had this idea of the next generation of search engine. Okay, so all the current search engines, Google, etc., Bing, have got better and better and better at searching for the needle in the haystack, for searching for things that actually exist in the, on the internet, from your search term. What David and his team were interested in is to have a search engine which you program effectively for what you want, and it creates something out of material that exists on the internet, but doesn't actually exist anywhere on the internet. Yeah, and they started exploring this in terms of stories. So trying to create stories, films from things that existed on the internet. Yeah, and they think of it as a creative search engine, hoping to sell it for gazillions to Google in a few years' time. And this is the first application of it, if you like, commercial application, because I thought, well, this could be great for market research, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a person, if you like, an enriched story of particular marketing constructs, which obviously don't exist on the internet, but made up of content that does exist. Okay. Anyway, back to back to our mobile music player example. So we learned about these 9 people's lives. We understood the music, that they were interested in. And for those of you that, are interested in this, we created, because the trouble is you can't search for music by words, because searching for title tracks or album, names just doesn't really make sense. But what you can do is you can take Peggy, let's say, the 19-year-old, and let's say she lives in New York. You can say, what radio station would Peggy listen to in New York? Okay, and you pick the radio station. Then you can actually go, the program, can go and look at what that radio station is actually playing right now. What's the song they're playing now? What are the songs that they play during the course of this this process? And once you know the sort of music that the radio station is playing, then you can say people who liked that sort of music also like this sort of music. And you can build up an actual music collection, which is pretty authentic, pretty, it's pretty accurate for that particular construct. So that's just one little example. We've actually got just a playful DigiVidual running around Kingston, Jamaica. It's called Bot Marley. So we have a Bot Marley that's actually kind of running around Kingston learning. We created that just to try and understand how to make this music program work. Anyway, what we did is we then generated a series of insights from what we learned from the characters. And although I can't share it with you, I can share that there were 2 insights that came through that were significantly better than the one that they were using for their current positioning. And they're going to take one of them and basically base their whole relaunch campaign around it. So it was regarded as a great success. Okay, second example. Net Promoter. Philips, who we work a lot with, work themselves with net promoters. The idea of the people who who love your product so much they promote it to others. And what we did is we had 2 characters: Jennifer, who represented Avent baby products, and then Ross, who represented Sonicare, which is the oral care, electric toothbrush. And on the right-hand side, you can see, this isn't everything, but this gives you a flavor of how we program. So it's the core characteristics, the emotional states, the keywords, and then what you also do is you overlay where they live, where they work, a kind of sense of the time of day, how often would they go out, what do they do at the weekends, hobbies, that sort of thing. All right, and I'm going to share the Jennifer example with you. So here's Jennifer, She is, 40, New York, stay-at-home mum. I wish my life could be calm and simple, but in reality, it's anything but. Being full-time mum, huge responsibilities to the family, and feeling pretty pressurized. I love the family. I wouldn't change them for anything, but, I spend quite a lot of time fighting for some peace. With so many demands placed on me, it's essential, to work efficiently if I'm to actually have any time to relax. When do I find time? I enjoy my relationships. I do those Pilates. Being a loving mum and a caring wife, relationships, and relationships were so critical to her. And the other thing that was critical is she was quite practical. She would use, time-saving devices or technology, but very much for a purpose, I guess, and in that sense, she was quite open to technology. Anyway, at the bottom, the idea that we came up with was when your baby's starting to show signs of waking, an automatic sensor basically detects the movement, because apparently babies sort of start moving just before they wake, and it'll gently rock the cradle and play sort of white noise to kind of keep the baby calm and keep the baby sleeping, unless it really needs to get up. So the insight is mums and dads, frankly the whole family, need their rest and recuperation from a hard day's parenting, and the nights are all too often interrupted by screaming baby. Wouldn't it be great if babies could be encouraged to continue resting and only scream the house down when they really need something? Yeah. So, and you can hopefully start to see how that could be the basis for a communications campaign, or perhaps a better NPD example than the one we came up with. But it's the same process. You understand Jennifer, you try and invent a product which you know she would really like, and you know she would really like it because you understand her and her life, and then you kind of generate the insight from both. Okay, last example. Philips have a TV segmentation, and one of the segments that they're interested in is the tech confident. Yeah, and so we created Ted. Ted's 32, he's a photographer. Actually, sorry, he's a civil engineer. His hobby is photography. We got him to live in Berlin. I mean, we had a number of different cities where the DigiViduals lived, and you can see some of his core characteristics, you know, down on the right-hand side. Now, the thing about Ted is I suppose there's a reality that you could have thought that he's just a geek, but actually it's not so simple, because although he's very, you know, technically minded, he's the sort of person that just doesn't take marketing at face value. He doesn't take anybody at face value. You know, to him, it was really important to understand how this particular category works. Frankly, how anything works. You know, whether it be TVs or cameras or and not just electronics. You know, just how do things work, and then to come to his own opinion about what's important, and therefore what's good and what's not good. And often, you know, they become the sort of people, Ted, you know, is who his friends always come to ask, well, you know, what should I be looking for? You know, I'm buying a new, you know, a new video recorder or whatever, and you know, what should I be looking for? And so, for him, performance is about creative control, you know, because he's quite confident, and connectivity, because, you know, the more connected something is these days, you know, the more useful it is. And technical superiority, and he feels confident in deciding what superiority is. But actually, there's a real aesthetic about it as well, and that's, you know, that's part of why, you know, Ted's not just a geek. You know, there's something, you know, very stylish, and that matters. Anyway, so we put, you know, we put Ted's lightboard together, and we put a video together, and he actually was a good case study for us, because Sensidium, who had done the segmentation for Philips, actually got everybody in Philips TV to take the questionnaire. So they actually knew what proportion of the different segments they had in the actual group of people who did it. And I think something like 70% of everyone working in TVs for Philips were tech confidents. Probably not surprising, you know, engineering culture. It attracts the more sort of tech confident. So actually we had a live, almost a validation opportunity, because we could present Ted, you know, to the audience, to the TV staff, which we did. And it's like, well, do you recognize it? You know, does he ring true to you? You know, because this is you, or at least a lot of you. And I am glad to say that he did, you know, and it was quite a nice, you know, validation of what we were doing. Because I think it's worth saying, you know, it is an art. This is as much an art as a science. I mean, there's a lot of science in the programming, in the mass ethnography of gathering a lot of material from the internet. But there's an art in how you program, you know, what words, what phrases, what emotions. And there's an art in how you actually pull out, you know, the so what, the themes that emerge. And there's obviously an art in generating the insights. You know, so there is creativity at every process. But it does seem, on all the projects that we've done it for, and these are just a few, that it seems to be inspiring, if you like. It does seem to inspire. It really enriches. So instead of a kind of slightly cardboard, two-dimensional segmentation, it brings the person to life. And so can be very inspiring to help creative agencies generate the communication campaign, or innovation agencies to generate NPD, or in our case, you know, kind of pulling out the insights. And we're less than a year into this, so we're still learning, you know, what we do with it, how we use it, and we've got a number of ideas for, you know, where it might go, including at the moment allowing people in our community to be able to create their own DigiViduals to explore particular subjects. But anyway, before I get carried away. I wanted to try and keep it quite short and sharp. So we're 25 minutes in, and really open it up for questions. And because I suspect there are it raises a lot of questions. I mean, both at the technical, how the hell does it work, right the way through to the ethical. Is this ethical? Are you spying on people? And maybe if it's okay, I'll answer that one first while you but please type away your questions, and John's going to have a read of them, and we'll try and get through all of them if we can. But is it kind of ethical? Because there is a bit of a big brother. We're searching the internet. So this is at least the way we're addressing it. We're being completely and utterly transparent about what we're doing. We don't want to pretend. We're not trying to fool anybody that this person on Twitter is a real person. Yeah, so we're making it absolutely obvious that it is a robot. This is a research robot. Twitter know all about what we're doing, and they think it's quite cool and absolutely kosher and interesting. And I think that the main reason that I don't think it's kind of dark and dastardly is because we're not actually following particular people. Yeah, we're not actually going out there to find the target audience and to spy on them. Yeah, that's not what this program does. What we're doing is we're creating a kind of an abstract, a fake marketing construct, segment, and then we're searching for publicly available material that just happens to fit that person. So we don't actually want to know anything about the people who have published the content. We just want the content, because the content is the content that brings to life our marketing construct. So we're using publicly available data to create a person that doesn't actually exist anywhere on the internet, if you like. Yeah. So it's, in that sense, it's the people whose material gets used, and we've contacted a few of them just to check, are delighted. It's like in the way that you put something up on the internet, on YouTube, and it starts to go viral. I mean, it's like, well, great, how cool is that? So I think, anyway, I mean, there are definitely issues, but we're going to be totally transparent and make it very, very clear that we're not spying on anybody. We're just taking content and we're repurposing it, if you like, hopefully putting it to good use. Although it is a commercial use, so you could argue that there's still a commercial aspect. Anyway, John,
Hi,
questions?
John. First question from Christina Black. Are the insights derived from real consumers or constructed as what a DigiVidual would theoretically feel?
They are effectively constructed. They're generated by us with a view to how the DigiVidual would feel. What would fit that particular marketing construct? Yeah. So it's the latter. So we're using the understanding of Nicole and her life and how she would be to create an insight which ultimately you can validate by going to the real target audience in a more conventional research method and finding out whether the insight that you've come up with resonates and has edge. But before that step, we're actually imagining what would light her bulbs.
Okay. The next question from Mara Buta. Great presentation. Quick question. Can DigiViduals be applied for business-to-business audience or just business-to-consumer?
Well, we are trying, so I think the answer is as long as the segment, if you like, of business-to-business is large enough that there would be content on the web to populate it, to make it enriched, you can do business-to-business. So for instance, we are doing some work with a healthcare pharmaceutical company where there are some additional issues of legal, there are some legal requirements which complicate it, but we are effectively looking at a particular condition medical condition,
Mm-hmm.
and in addition to understanding that medical condition from the patients themselves, which would be the business to consumer side, we're also interested in the doctors and the physicians and the nurses who and the people who are funding, deciding funding, to understand their life, if you like. So we're creating a doctor DigiVigil to try and actually understand the reality of the physician, and that would be a business-to-business example.
Okay.
So I think it's an interesting challenge. Yeah.
Simon Chadwick asks, how do you decide on the variables for the characters you create? Is this based on more research?
Yeah. Hello, Simon. You can always trust Simon to come up with the pertinent question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's a range. I mean, the answer isn't singular, I'm afraid. There's a range of answers from, at the most precise, you've got, let's say, the segmentation example. Yeah, so you've done a piece of large quantitative research, which now gives you the definition of your segment in fairly, pretty precise socio-demographic as well as psychographic terms, and that is where it becomes easiest for us, because we're taking those components, those definitions, and we're programming it with the segments components. At the other end, where it's much more of an art, if you like, where there's much more translation, would be something like a trend. Okay, so you've understood a particular trend, but you've no doubt done this qualitatively, because it's hard to find a kind of a quantitative trend. I mean, other than a rising population, but I mean a kind of a qualitative trend. And what you then have to do is you have to translate that into the characteristics of a person, because you're trying to represent the trend, with human characteristics. And I'm afraid, that is art. You're trying to program it. And then there are various stages, I guess, in between, whether it's a brand persona or a net promoter, how much do you know or how little do you know? But that's what you're trying to do. The one thing you can, so that you don't just get one shot at it. The nice thing about this is it's ongoing. So basically, you come up with your definition, you program, and then you let the DigiVigil loose on the internet. And about a week later, you start to gather, all this information, and you can put together a sense of the person. And then together, frankly, with the clients, when we've been working on it, you look at what's coming back, and it's kind of like, well, is that Nicole? Especially when it's the trends end, does this feel right? Does this actually feel like it's it's true? Because it's almost like a film director where you've got a script, the film you're making, but you've still got to cast it. You've still got to choose the right person to represent that role. And are they authentic? Are they believable? Do they feel right? And so, and if it's not, then you can tweak the words, you can tweak the inputs until you're starting to get content back that you recognize.
Okay, about half a dozen questions here. Tim Woodhouse would like to know, have you encountered any problems mining content from older target groups and those who are less tech savvy?
Okay. I think what John was really trying to tell me with half a dozen questions is give shorter answers. So I'll try. We haven't encountered problems with the older group, mainly because we're not actually looking for the target audience. So let's take an extreme example. Let's say with the pharmaceuticals, you see, I've already blown it. I'm not going to give a short answer, but hopefully it'll be better for it. Let's say we're looking for a particular condition which is prevalent in the over 60s, over 70s, okay? What we're not really doing is just looking for people over 70 who've posted content that would be relevant. We're actually just looking for content that would be relevant, even if it's posted by someone younger, yeah? Just to make this really extreme. But that content we know is relevant from all of the conditions, and we would represent it as, let's say, a 67-year-old, kind of man who lives in Buffalo or whatever it was, and anyone looking at that profile, whether it be a doctor or the marketing team, it would be utterly believable. And I think that's why we so far haven't struggled to find content. Quite the opposite. The struggle, if anything, is how to filter the content, to make it really usable. And that's where a combination of the program and learning how to work with the content that's coming through is resolving that.
Okay. Fiona Norton has a great question. Doesn't it lead to a relatively predictable result? Are you really getting into the source of their need and want?
Okay, perfect. It is a good question because it starts to feel, I'm conscious of this, from your point of view, when you listen to it, it's like, well, aren't you just getting out what you've put in? Absolutely not. Okay, so I think what's exciting when you work on the project, and all the clients who've done this with us have had the same reaction, is what you put in is really quite dry, and it's not huge. I mean, it's really not a huge amount of information. What you get out is just incredibly, I mean, amazingly rich and believable. I think that's the thing. When we've worked with these, we've got to the end of a workshop. When we were doing the trends, we had 10 DigiViduals, a male and a female character for each of the 5 trends. And when we got to the end of the sort of a day's workshop on all these characters, someone from the client side kind of smiled and commented. He said, do you know what? I haven't for an instant felt that we were talking about robots. I mean, this is almost as if we've studied these 10 people for months and we understand their lives. That's how real they felt. And I think that's what it's about. It's a much more understandable, believable, and inspiring way to work with something that is actually normally quite abstract.
Okay, Elizabeth Blatch, please could you repeat the logic whereby the insights are proven to be correct, i.e. in the resonance and edge quadrant?
Sure.
How are they vetted? By the individual character?
Okay. No, so basically the insight validator is a tool that we built about 6 years ago at the request of a client, or we want to pitch actually, to try and measure insights. Yeah, because it's a pretty difficult thing to do because they're quite abstract. There isn't a product offer at the end of it. It's just an insight. And so our definition, if you like, of a great insight is what gave us that resonance and edge axes. There are about 3 questions that we're measuring behind each one. But it's, wow, you really understand me, almost better than I understand myself. And the way that we're validating when we get to that stage, if clients ask us to do it, is we're then taking the target audience. So in the case of Philips, TV segment, you would go to that segment, and you would do a piece of very, I'd say, conventional quantitative market research where you're trying to find the audience that are tech confident, and you would try the 1, 2, or 3 insights that you've come up with for that group and find out whether they resonate or not. Do they resonate and do they have edge?
Okay.
So that's if you like, the end stage of validating whether the insights that the DigiViduals has helped inspire have actually come up with anything that's really useful for the company.
Well, Stephen Coates asks, have you tried creating constructs that are near to each other to see how many people of these types are out there?
Well, we have. I mean, the trend project, by definition, having a male and a female character for each trend, I mean, the program was incredibly similar. I mean, the words used, but we just tweaked each one to obviously be more male or more female. And it was a bit of a test to find out whether we would get content that was distinct. And we did. I mean, we really did. We very much, the male character was the male and the female was the female. But remember, what we're not doing is trying to search for the people who are, if you like, that trend. We're searching for the content which fits that trend. And I know that's a oh, hang on. And that's one of the key distinctions. So what we're not doing in DigiViduals is mining the web for the groups of people who are that particular target audience, let's say. We're mining the web for content which fits that particular target audience, that would enrich and bring to life that particular segment or trend or target audience in an absolutely authentic way, and make it inspiring. So I know it's an odd distinction, but hopefully it's clear.
Okay. Vianagami, once you gather all the information, how do you arrive to a single DigiVidual? Two different people and analysts could interpret into different ways.
Yes, they could. So let's be, I'll try and be really, as transparent with my answers here as they are. Although this is mass ethnography, it's not trying to achieve a quantitatively accurate, scientifically accurate one picture. And so there is interpretation and there is skill on the part of the researcher deciding which of the content to put in to the life board and the video, the DigiVideo. But hopefully, if you had 4 different researchers doing it, they would still come up with similar themes. So the specifics would be different, but the themes hopefully would be broadly the same. But yes, it is an art. It is a qualitative process as much as it is a taking from quantitative content, which is partly what makes it interesting, I think. And really, it's a means to an end rather than an end in itself. The end is to generate really great, potent insights, I would say. Yeah, that's the end, and this is a means to that end. So it's a creative, generative, but also quantitative in the sense of its scale. I mean, we had 50,000 people from whom we had taken content when we were doing the trend project. This is really large-scale stuff, but actually it's qualitative, and its purpose is to inspire and inform. I mean, accurately enough. It's not inaccurate. It is accurate enough, but the main purpose is to inspire so that you end up with an insight which actually makes a difference to the business. That's the end.
Okay. Randy Berkowitz asks, how difficult is it to get management, brand, creative team consensus on the elements that go into a DigiVidual? Is there hard data behind the development of the DigiVidual personality?
I would say, avoid that by not actually making the final part of our DigiVidual process consensual, if that's the right phrase. So I would say that the way that we've been working is that we do quite a lot of workshop, client and ourselves, in terms of pulling together the actual elements to create the DigiVidual, the board, if you like, and some of the video elements. So there is an element of doing it together. But once you've got, yes, this feels like our character, the creative, generative process of going from that to the insights, we've been really doing that ourselves. And ultimately, what the creative teams care about is the actual insight. Is that insight inspiring? Does it move me? And to then be able to watch the DigiVideo is the sort of stimulus that they normally appreciate. It brings it to life. It colors it, and might even give them some ideas.
Okay, are you good for 3 more?
Sure, if everyone else is.
Okay. Vincent van der Berg, how do you weigh the vast number of different materials you find on the internet to accurately describe the persona? When is which material more important than other material you find?
So again, a bit like the previous question, I wouldn't even claim that it is entirely accurate in the same way that we would wish and hopefully claim that a piece of quantitative, targeted research would be. Yeah? But it needs to be broadly authentic, accurate in the sense that this person who represents the tech confidence, or this person who represents a 19-year-old in Brazil, living in Sao Paulo, and what their life would be like in relation to mobile music, yeah, it has to be authentic. So if you went to some 19-year-olds in Sao Paulo and you presented, our DigiVigil, they kind of, yeah. I mean, there'll be differences between each of them, but they should recognize it. And that's what I meant right at the beginning when I said, imagine we created a DigiVigil of each of you listening. You would be able to select out which of the kind of content really represents you. Obviously, that would be easy, for you because it's you. And what we're doing, if you like, and the clients are doing, is the proxy of that on behalf of the construct.
Okay.
So it's never going to be entirely accurate, but it's accurate enough, and more importantly, inspiring enough to generate something useful.
Well, Michael Donovan's question, I think, follows on from this. Building on Simon's question, if the robot is in essence the germ around which web-based content is collected, how does the content get woven into stories and insights?
By us. So this is the glorious, or with the client sometimes, but this is the talent of a good researcher, planners, people who can actually weave together the content into a story and into something that feels not only believable, but kind of you can do something with. So yeah, it's the robots themselves are automated and they do an amazing amount of heavy lifting. But to be honest, the real sort of clever bit, the value that's extracted at the other end is done by people, creative people.
Okay, last question of the afternoon. Hi, this is from Florence Rainsard. Imagine I want to check the relevance of a target in a specific country. How can you ensure that the content will only come from this specific country and not all over the world?
Okay, so you can program it to only search for tweets or content in whatever area you decide. I mean, it could literally be in a postcode. So you could only take, so anything that, if you like, is on Twitter. So you can only say, give me content from Hammersmith in London, or the south of England, or England. So basically you can program that, just as you can program most of the search criteria and the filtering criteria. That's the thing. The filter factory, as their name would suggest, the focus is all on what filters do you want to put on this, rather than what searches, which is almost an expansive thing. This is the opposite. It's let's take the teeming mass of humanity that exists on the web and let's apply some clever, smart filters to create something useful. And that's what we're trying to do. And look, thank you. Thanks for tuning in. I hope I've done justice to explaining what on earth these things are, how they work. We'll send a copy of the webinar out so you can listen to it again if you so choose, or pass it on to colleagues. And if there are any follow-up questions, just reply to my email, and I'll do my best.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.